The relationship between economic growth and inequality has long been a central theme in economics, social policy, and political discourse. This intricate interplay shapes the fabric of societies, influences the trajectory of nations, and determines the well-being of millions. Understanding how economic expansion interacts with the distribution of wealth and income is crucial for policymakers, researchers, and citizens alike. Over time, perspectives on this relationship have evolved, guided by empirical evidence, theoretical developments, and shifting global realities. Historically, the classical economists, such as Adam Smith and David Ricardo, focused on the mechanisms of wealth creation and the division of output among different classes. They recognized that economic growth could increase overall prosperity, but also noted the potential for disparities in how this prosperity was shared. Later, in the mid-20th century, Simon Kuznets famously hypothesized an inverted U relationship between growth and inequality, suggesting that inequality first rises and then falls as economies develop. This so-called Kuznets curve became a touchstone for decades of research and debate. The core intuition behind the Kuznets curve is that, in the early stages of development, a shift from agriculture to industry creates new opportunities, but these are often concentrated in urban areas or among populations with access to capital and education. As a result, those able to participate in these new sectors see their incomes rise faster than those left behind, leading to widening inequality. Over time, however, as industrialization spreads and more people gain access to its benefits, inequality is expected to decline. This process is aided by factors such as expanded education, labor mobility, social policies, and political reforms. Empirical evidence for the Kuznets curve is mixed. In some countries, particularly in Western Europe and North America, during the 19th and 20th centuries, inequality did indeed rise during early industrialization and then fall as societies became more affluent and implemented redistributive policies. However, more recent experiences in developing countries, as well as rising inequality in advanced economies since the 1980s, have challenged the universality of this pattern. Globalization, technological change, and shifts in labor markets have complicated the picture, leading many scholars to argue that the relationship between growth and inequality is contingent on a host of institutional, political, and historical factors. One key mechanism linking growth and inequality is the role of human capital. Economic growth often depends on technological progress and innovation, which in turn requires skilled labor. When access to education and training is unequal, those with better skills capture a disproportionate share of the gains from growth. This dynamic can reinforce existing inequalities, especially if public investment in education is insufficient, or if barriers to entry, such as discrimination or geographic isolation, persist. Conversely, broad-based investments in human capital can help ensure that the benefits of growth are more widely shared. Another important channel is the structure of the labor market. In economies where growth is driven by sectors that demand high levels of skill or capital, such as finance or technology, income tends to concentrate among those with the requisite qualifications or assets. By contrast, growth fueled by labor-intensive industries or small-scale entrepreneurship may have a more egalitarian impact, provided that workers have bargaining power and access to opportunities. Labor market institutions, such as unions, minimum wage laws, and social protections, play a critical role in shaping these outcomes. The financial sector also mediates the relationship between growth and inequality. Access to credit, savings, and investment opportunities allows individuals and firms to take advantage of economic expansion. However, when financial systems are underdeveloped or exclusionary, only a narrow segment of the population can participate fully in growth. Financial inclusion initiatives, such as microfinance, mobile banking, and targeted lending, can help democratize access to economic opportunities and reduce inequality. Taxation and public spending are perhaps the most direct tools for influencing the distributional consequences of growth. Progressive tax systems and social transfers can offset market-generated inequalities, funding public goods such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure. The effectiveness of these tools depends on the capacity of governments to raise revenue, administer programs efficiently, and resist capture by elites. In some contexts, weak institutions or corruption can undermine redistribution, allowing inequality to persist or worsen even amid robust growth. Globalization has added new dimensions to the growth-inequality nexus. The integration of world markets has created vast opportunities for trade, investment, and technological diffusion. For many developing countries, globalization has facilitated rapid growth and poverty reduction. However, the benefits have not been evenly distributed. Skilled workers, capital owners, and globally connected firms have often reaped the largest rewards, while less skilled workers and marginalized regions have faced increased competition and job insecurity. The offshoring of manufacturing, the rise of global value chains, and the concentration of technological capabilities in a few countries have all contributed to new forms of inequality both within and between nations. Technological change, particularly the digital revolution, has further complicated the relationship between growth and inequality. Automation, artificial intelligence, and digital platforms have transformed production processes, created new industries, and enabled unprecedented connectivity. Yet, they have also displaced traditional jobs, polarized labor markets, and increased returns to capital and specialized skills. The so-called winner-takes-all dynamics of the digital economy can exacerbate inequality unless counteracted by policies that promote access, adaptability, and social protection. The interplay between economic growth and inequality is not unidirectional. While growth can influence inequality, the reverse is also true. High or rising inequality can affect the prospects for sustained and inclusive economic expansion. Excessive inequality can undermine social cohesion, erode trust in institutions, and fuel political instability. It can also distort investment decisions, limit aggregate demand, and reduce the effectiveness of public policies. There is growing recognition that societies with extreme disparities may struggle to maintain the conditions necessary for long-term growth. Research by organizations such as the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, has highlighted the risks associated with high inequality. Studies suggest that countries with more equitable distributions of income and wealth tend to experience more durable and resilient growth. This is partly because broad-based prosperity supports consumption, investment in human capital, and social stability. Moreover, inclusive growth strategies, those that prioritize access to opportunities and social mobility, are increasingly seen as essential for sustainable development. Policy responses to the challenges posed by the growth-inequality relationship vary across countries and over time. Some governments have prioritized market-friendly reforms, emphasizing deregulation, liberalization, and privatization as engines of growth. Others have focused on social investment, labor market regulation, and progressive taxation to ensure that growth is inclusive. The balance between these approaches reflects societal values, political dynamics, and historical legacies. In recent years, there has been renewed interest in the concept of inclusive growth. This paradigm emphasizes that economic expansion should go hand in hand with reductions in poverty and inequality. It calls for policies that promote access to quality education, healthcare, and infrastructure, support decent work and fair wages, and foster social protection and empowerment. Inclusive growth is seen not just as a moral imperative, but as a pragmatic strategy for building stable, prosperous societies. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought the issue of inequality into even sharper focus. The crisis exposed and exacerbated pre-existing disparities in health, employment, and access to resources. While some segments of society, particularly those able to work remotely or with secure assets, weathered the storm relatively well, others faced devastating losses. The uneven recovery from the pandemic has underscored the importance of resilience, solidarity, and targeted interventions to support the most vulnerable. Debates about the relationship between growth and inequality are also shaped by broader questions about the purpose and measurement of economic progress. Traditional metrics such as gross domestic product, GDP, capture the aggregate size of an economy but say little about how prosperity is distributed or whether it translates into improvements in well-being. Alternative indicators, such as the Human Development Index, HDI, the Gini coefficient, and measures of multidimensional poverty, offer a more nuanced view of progress and highlight the importance of equity alongside efficiency. Environmental sustainability adds yet another layer of complexity to the growth-inequality nexus. The pursuit of economic expansion, particularly when reliant on resource-intensive or polluting activities, can have adverse effects on ecosystems and future generations. Climate change and environmental degradation disproportionately affect the poor and marginalized, exacerbating existing inequalities. At the same time, efforts to transition to greener economies, such as investments in renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and circular business models, can create new opportunities for inclusive growth if designed with equity in mind. The international community has increasingly recognized the need to address inequality as part of the broader agenda for sustainable development. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, adopted in 2015, include explicit targets related to reducing inequality within and among countries, promoting decent work, and ensuring access to quality education and healthcare. Achieving these goals requires coordinated action across multiple domains: economic, social, and environmental, and a commitment to leaving no one behind. The relationship between economic growth and inequality is thus multifaceted, context-dependent, and dynamic. It is shaped by a complex interplay of structural factors, institutional arrangements, policy choices, and external shocks. While there are no simple formulas or one-size-fits-all solutions, several lessons can be drawn from the accumulated evidence and experience. First, the distributional consequences of growth depend critically on the initial conditions and the pathways through which expansion occurs. Growth that is concentrated in a few sectors, regions, or social groups is more likely to exacerbate inequality than growth that is broad-based and inclusive. Policies that promote diversification, regional development, and equal access to opportunities can help spread the benefits of growth more widely. Second, investments in human capital are essential for ensuring that individuals and communities can participate fully in economic life. Education, training, and lifelong learning not only enhance productivity and innovation, but also promote social mobility and reduce disparities. Public policies that address barriers to access, such as affordability, discrimination, or geographic isolation, are crucial for leveling the playing field. Third, labor market institutions and social protections play a vital role in shaping the link between growth and inequality. Collective bargaining, minimum wages, unemployment insurance, and other forms of social security can help ensure that workers receive a fair share of the gains from growth and are protected against shocks. These measures also support aggregate demand and social stability, reinforcing the foundations for sustained expansion. Fourth, progressive taxation and effective public spending are powerful tools for redistributing income and investing in public goods. The design of tax systems, balancing efficiency, equity, and administrative feasibility, matters greatly for achieving desired outcomes. Transparent, accountable, and responsive governance is essential for building trust and ensuring that redistribution serves the public interest. Fifth, financial inclusion and the development of inclusive financial systems can help democratize access to economic opportunities. Initiatives that expand access to credit, savings, insurance, and digital payment systems empower individuals and small businesses to invest, innovate, and manage risks. Regulatory frameworks that protect consumers and promote competition are important for ensuring that financial markets serve the needs of all segments of society. Sixth, managing the impacts of globalization and technological change requires proactive policies that support adaptation, resilience, and social cohesion. Trade adjustment assistance, active labor market programs, and investments in digital infrastructure can help workers and communities navigate transitions and seize new opportunities. International cooperation is also critical for addressing cross-border challenges and ensuring that the benefits of globalization are widely shared. Seventh, integrating environmental sustainability into growth strategies is essential for ensuring that progress is both inclusive and enduring. Policies that promote green technologies, sustainable resource use, and climate resilience can create new sources of growth while protecting vulnerable populations and ecosystems. Just transition frameworks, designed to support workers and communities affected by environmental change, are increasingly recognized as key components of inclusive growth. Eighth, fostering inclusive institutions and participatory governance enhances the ability of societies to manage the tensions between growth and inequality. Institutions that are transparent, accountable, and responsive to diverse interests are better equipped to mediate conflicts, build consensus, and implement effective policies. Civic engagement, social dialogue, and the empowerment of marginalized groups strengthen the social contract and support more equitable outcomes. The literature on the relationship between economic growth and inequality continues to evolve, incorporating insights from economics, sociology, political science, and other disciplines. New data sources, analytical tools, and methodological approaches have enriched our understanding of the mechanisms at play. At the same time, persistent challenges, such as data limitations, measurement issues, and the complexity of causal relationships, underscore the need for ongoing research and dialogue. Case studies from around the world illustrate the diversity of experiences and the importance of context. In East Asia, rapid growth combined with investments in education, land reform, and export-led industrialization led to significant reductions in poverty and, in some cases, inequality. In Latin America, periods of growth have sometimes coincided with rising inequality, reflecting structural imbalances, weak institutions, and limited social protection. In sub-Saharan Africa, the challenge of translating growth into broad-based improvements in living standards remains acute, highlighting the need for inclusive strategies and effective governance. Advanced economies have also grappled with the challenges of rising inequality amid technological change and globalization. The resurgence of inequality in the United States and parts of Europe since the late 20th century has spurred debates about the future of work, the role of the welfare state, and the need for new forms of social contract. Policy innovations, such as universal basic income, wealth taxes, and expanded social investment, are being explored as ways to address the new realities of the 21st century. The politics of growth and inequality are complex and often contentious. Competing interests, ideological divides, and power asymmetries shape the policy agenda and influence outcomes. Building coalitions for inclusive growth requires leadership, vision, and the ability to navigate trade-offs. It also demands a willingness to experiment, learn from experience, and adapt to changing circumstances. Looking ahead, several trends are likely to shape the evolution of the growth-inequality relationship. Demographic change, including aging populations, migration, and urbanization, will affect labor markets, public finances, and social cohesion. Technological innovation will continue to disrupt traditional industries and create new opportunities and risks. Environmental challenges will require transformative shifts in production, consumption, and governance. Geopolitical tensions and the reconfiguration of global value chains may reshape the landscape of trade and investment. In this context, the pursuit of inclusive, sustainable, and resilient growth is both a challenge and an opportunity. It calls for a holistic approach that integrates economic, social, and environmental objectives, leverages the strengths of diverse actors and institutions, and commits to equity, justice, and solidarity. The stakes are high. The choices made today will shape the prospects of current and future generations. The relationship between economic growth and inequality is not a zero-sum game. With thoughtful policies, strong institutions, and inclusive governance, it is possible to achieve growth that lifts all boats and narrows divides. The task is urgent and the path is complex, but the potential rewards, a more prosperous, just, and harmonious world, are well worth the effort. Ultimately, the story of growth and inequality is a story about the kind of societies we want to build. It is about the values we uphold, the opportunities we create, and the futures we imagine. By deepening our understanding of this relationship and acting with courage and foresight, we can move closer to a world in which prosperity is shared, dignity is respected, and every individual has the chance to thrive.